afternoon, everyone. I'm Christopher Hill, the editor-in-chief of DestinAsian magazine, and thank you all for tuning in to the second episode in our series of travel industry webinars. For today's topic, we'll be looking at how hotels are protecting guests and employees through unprecedented cleaning and safety measures. Now, that's admittedly not the sexiest topic out there, and only a few months ago, I'd never have imagined myself hosting a discussion about hygiene and HEPA filters. But there you go. It's worth reminding ourselves that hotels in general have always been very clean places, but the coronavirus outbreak has obliged the industry to step up its hygiene practices and protocols like never before. And since people will only start traveling again when they feel it is safe to do so, this is crucial to the recovery of tourism and travel. Thankfully, hotel groups have responded to this crisis tirelessly, tapping into the latest research and technologies to introduce a slew of new measures that span rigorous disinfection procedures, social distancing protocols in public spaces, contactless services like digital check-in, and even on-staff hygiene managers. There's a lot to digest here. And to help us take a deeper dive into how hotels are ensuring their guests' safety and well-being, while at the same time making them feel confident about checking in again, we are fortunate to have a distinguished panel of industry executives with us today who represent a broad spectrum of leading brands. From Singapore, we have Gaynor Reid, the Vice President of Communications and Corporate Social Responsibility at Accor Hotels Asia Pacific. All the way from Mexico, we have Peter Hessler, who I thank particularly because God knows what time it is for you there, but it's the wee hours, I suspect. Peter is a Senior Assistant Vice President at Banyan Tree Hotels and Resorts, where he heads up the company's regional operations for the Middle East, Europe, North Africa, and the Americas. Also in Singapore is Catherine Scaum, Vice President of Sales and Hotel Marketing for Asia Pacific at Four Seasons Hotels and Resorts. We also have Hilton's Niels Arna Schroeder, who is replacing his colleague Alexandra Jarretts on this panel. Niels is Vice President of Luxury and Lifestyle at Hilton for the Asia Pacific region. Finally, we have Thomas Meyer, the Senior Vice President of Operations for Asia and the Indian Ocean at Minor Hotels, based in Bangkok. So thank you all very much for your time. For the next 25 minutes or so, we'll go around the table in alphabetical order by company name to give you each about 5 minutes to discuss what your hotel groups are doing to keep guests and staff safe. There's likely going to be some overlap, but I'm sure there are plenty of points of distinction as well. And please feel free to cite any individual properties that have been particularly successful at overcoming their challenges. After that, we'll have an open discussion on a few talking points, followed by about 10 minutes for a Q&A session that viewers can participate in using the chat function on the toolbar at the bottom of your Zoom screen. So please send in your questions and we'll get to as many as we can. And with that, I'll hand the mic over to Gaynor from Accor, one of the world's largest hospitality companies with 39 brands and 5,000 hotels across 110 different countries. I think I have my numbers right. By way of a brief introduction, Accor's new hygiene and prevention measures are dubbed All Safe, which it calls some of the most stringent cleaning standards and operational protocols in the world of hospitality. They encompass everything from specialized staff training and enhanced food safety, and are being developed and vetted by Bureau Veritas, a Paris-based testing and certification company. The program also includes a partnership with the global insurer AXA to offer unique medical assistance in hotels worldwide. So Gaynor, over to you.
Thank you, Chris. Actually, I think you've done my job for me, which is great. It's good to see that our messages are getting through. Look, I think we all know that people are very, very keen to get back to travel, but the one concern they have is that they want to get back to travel safely. And of course, it's our job to make sure that not only are our guests safe, but also our teams are safe and that our communities are safe. So this is our highest priority right now. And I think if we all go around the room, we've obviously got some great brands across the world and across different sectors. We're all going to say similar things, like we're all going to have the availability of masks, sanitizers, increased cleaning protocols, especially for high-touch areas. I think a couple of things that we're doing to stand out in this space is, actually it should be a given. You mentioned hotels should be clean. But we wanted to give people more than just the cleanliness. It's about well-being and reassurance and peace of mind, I guess. So a couple of things. You mentioned the partnership with AXA. So that means that basically any of our guests will have access to thousands of medical professionals vetted by AXA. They're a leading insurer, protection agency, health agency, that you can have from the safety of your hotel room, a telemedical consultation free of charge at any of our hotels, any time of day or night, which I think will obviously help to reassure people when they're traveling. And one of the things we're going to have is an all-safe officer in every hotel. So, you know, we know that every part of the hotel, from F&B, from public spaces, from check-in, every single person who enters and exits our hotels will have to be following new protocols, but we'll have a safety officer, I guess an all-safe officer 24/7 at all of our hotels to make sure that those standards are being upheld. So we've got global standards, you mentioned Bureau Veritas, but we're also working with entities like SG Clean. We're working with local authorities. We operate across 100 countries. So we have to make sure we're following the local guidelines as well. So I think, as you said, there's going to be a lot of repetition. So I'll hand over to some others.
Okay. First, though, if I may, I just wanted to ask, because Accor, Hilton as well, I mean, there are multiple brands within your portfolio. Are the measures being rolled out? Are they even across all brands, or are there distinctions?
Every brand. I mean, you deserve to be safe wherever you travel. It doesn't matter whether that's an economy or luxury, you know, from Raffles to Ibis, everybody needs to feel safe. So of course, that's across all of our brands and every hotel.
Excellent. So that will take us now to Singapore-based Banyan Tree Group, which announced just last week the launch of what it calls Safe Sanctuary, an integrated health and wellness program that also happens to be certified by Bureau Veritas. Rolling out from June, I believe, across Banyan Tree's 47 hotels and resorts worldwide. The program includes over 40 areas of enhanced safety protocols, which we don't need to go into all of those, obviously, but Peter, why don't you give us the highlights of what's happening at Banyan Tree?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, like everybody else, I mean, Gaina said it, it's the same thing. We're all trying to save the world in one way or the other. We're all trying to make sure that our customers coming in, they're safe. The reason why I'm on the call is because I'm on the other side of the world, and you know, our market is the US, and you know, we're working very closely, especially the properties in Mexico, with the CDC guidelines of the US. And you know, hygiene standards are now, I mean, you know, our main market is New York, and the New Yorkers who want to come, they want to make sure that they are not getting infected, that they are not having any kind of issues coming over. We as well work with Bureau Veritas, same like Accor. Actually, this is an alliance. We are working together with Accor. The Safe Sanctuary program, again, there's so many details. I mean, we're going completely paperless in the rooms. You know, the high touch points are completely eliminated. Everything is by QR codes, like everybody is doing. And again, you're talking with your colleagues in the industry, and you hear literally everybody does the same. There's one thing what I actually a little bit concerned in is how does the airlines doing it? And again, this is because, you know, they bring us the client, and you see, you can do whatever you want in your property when the airlines has not done the jobs what they're supposed to do. And you know, I find it a little bit strange that hospitality and airlines is actually not working much closer together to get this thing up and running, because you're going to be much more safe as a customer to walking in. And again, as you said in the beginning, talking about hygiene is not really sexy, but again, also we're doing everything, and we have done this before. And so, you know, we take a step at a time. We're adjusting our policies according to the needs, to every destination, to every location. And then we are seeing also, and working much closer with the local governments, because this is what the requirements are.
Okay, I think you gave me a subject for our next webinar. That would be the airline safety protocols and how those dovetail with the rest of the industry. But let me ask you Quickly, Banyan Tree is also launching what it calls an organizational well-being index to assess and respond to associates' well-being, as well as regional teletherapy service to help support emotional and mental health. Could you speak quickly
Yes,
about
yes. What we learned is now that everybody is actually at home, and a lot of people are very worried. They are worried about their jobs. They're worried about their mental health. Our training programs are actually geared much more to their emotions. Not only, okay, you have to train standards. You not have to do only what have been told in terms of your dedication towards your company, but also what we can give back to them and how we can actually assure them you can come back and it's safe. A lot of hotels are working with being tested. Again, this is something comes back from the US. As more you test, as more you secure. But there are not many tests which are reliable in various countries. Imagine you test your staff and they walk in and they know they are safe and they're good. And this is baby steps in the moment, but we are trying to do this, and we're trying to make sure that we can do this rolling out to all of our properties.
Excellent, excellent. All right, Catherine, your turn. Four Seasons recently announced its Lead with Care program, which includes a dedicated COVID-19 advisory board with experts from Johns Hopkins Medicine International. Perhaps you could take us through what that means for guests and staff.
Sure. So a lot of thought has been put into really ensuring that we continue to deliver that trust that our customers have given us for over 60 years, right? It's something that we've taken very seriously. It is a very thoughtful process. As the rest of our colleagues here, we've heightened our standards internally, having gained quite a bit of experience actually with the Four Seasons New York. As you know, we are one of the first hotels to really open the hotel to our frontline medical workers. So we worked with Ecolab, the CDC, the International SOS, and that's a much heightened level, right? And so that's really where we began our thought process in putting together the Lead with Care program. So finding the right consultant that we could work with moving forward to validate the measures that we've put into place. And we've found that a perfect consultant collaboration with Johns Hopkins. And Johns Hopkins will have an advisory board that will review the measures that we've put in place, will validate it, will keep us updated on any developments in terms of healthy measures implementing. They will continue to keep us informed on new products potentially that could be out in the market that we should be considering. They will, they'll help us if we had some clients that may have some concerns. They'll actually provide us guidance. So it's really a fantastic agreement that we have going with Johns Hopkins, a leading organization, as you know, that really shares the same values that Four Seasons has.
Excellent. Okay. Now let's turn to Hilton, which operates nearly 1 million hotel rooms, I think I have that right, worldwide, across a family of 18 brands. Hilton has begun a program called Clean Stay, or officially Clean Stay with Lysol Protection. And the hotel giant is collaborating with RB, the maker of Lysol and Dettol, as well as consulting with Mayo Clinic's infection prevention and control team to improve all cleaning and disinfection protocols. Niels, you look after Hilton's luxury and lifestyle group, excuse me, which includes Waldorf Astoria, LXR, Conrad, and Canopy. Could you please tell us more about what these brands are doing?
Thank you, Chris. Ultimately, I think it's, we have to go, it's not only the luxury and lifestyle hotels, it's all our brands. I mean, that's what Akko already said as well. And I think what Hilton is doing is really, I'm in this business for over 30 years. Cleanliness was always the most important in any day on all those couple of years. Industry cleaning standards across all our brands in Asia Pacific around the world. That was the reason why people actually have chosen us year after year. Of course, as things have changed over the last couple of months, and the approach of hygiene and cleanliness is making a little shift at the moment. But again, safety and well-being of our team members, that is crucial. And of course, our guest remains and it will be always the highest priority. And the additional measurements which we're now taking is actually in connection with the public health authorities, including the WHO and the CDC in the US, as we are very much a US-centric company. But of course, with all the brands which we have in Asia Pacific, we can rely on all our experience over there. The teams are doing an awesome good job. You know, that's what we should never forget. The teams are actually looking after our guests at the moment as we speak in 6,100 of our hotels. We have only a small number of hotels still closed. The majority is actually have reopened, or they were always open in the entire pandemic over the last couple of weeks. So building on all this, what we have actually done, we have announced Hilton Clean Stay, as you said, Chris. And really we wanted to introduce a rigorous program to deliver an industry-defining standard of cleanliness and disinfection in all our hotels. And hence we partnered with RB. Those are really the world-class expert in cleaning and disinfection and maker of the globally recognized and trusted brands. And that's what important is. That's what the customer is looking for, the trust of a brand. And that's what Lysol, and here particularly in Asia Pacific, is all about that tool as well. Yes, you mentioned already Mayo Clinic. We're very, very fortunate to work with the experts from the infection prevention and control teams. And they're really advising and assisting us on the cleaning and disinfection protocols, the new technologies, and the approaches and the training programs. All this what we, again, with our team members have to deliver every day. So I lived and breathed in hotels for over 20 years. I know that our team members, they are the ones actually who will do it in the end. And that's very important. What we have now introduced are details of the programs in a couple of days. But some measurements which we have under consideration is really what we call it a Hilton Clean Stay room seal. That means there's a seal at the door, and that means that will indicate that the guest room hasn't been accessed since it was clean. Important is as well the extra disinfection of the top 10 high touch areas points. I mean, that's really important as well. Those are the points of the light switches, the door handles, the remote control. These are the ones which you really have to do actually every time a housekeeper comes in your room or in your public areas as well in your hotel. So the decluttering, as was mentioned already before, that's of course now the paper amenities, they're going slowly but surely all the way. The cleaning frequency in public areas, important as well, that actually our guests have to see our team members. What happened maybe in the past was that we cleaned it in the middle of the night in the lobby because we didn't want them to be visible. Now we do it actually in the middle of the day because our guests feel much more comfortable if they see us actually looking after them and the hygiene and the disinfection in our areas. So that's really they're enhancing the guest, but as well as I said, important as well as our team members. So in Asia Pacific, all this, what we have as well, don't forget, we keep running our hotels. So we are supporting our local governments, our communities around, in Singapore, Malaysia, Philippines. We're hosting people coming back to the countries. They cannot go home. They're staying in our hotels as we speak. And of course, we still continue to engage with customers. I think important as well at the moment is about communicating what we do to our customers. And not only what we're doing in hygiene and in disinfection in the hotel, but as well, we are actually still engaging with them with content series of Hilton at Home, and we are actually revealing the double tweak cookie recipe, which we never unveiled in 50 years, but we actually did. We're looking at our team members as we speak, because some hotels have maybe low occupancies, but now we are training them and coaching them in many areas. So there's a lot of going on in the hotels. I could go on for long, but I think our partnership, which is important, I think, is with R&B, because it's really, the rooms were cleaned already with hospital graded material, but now that we actually have a brand to it as well on top, that will give the confidence level back to the customer, which was already there. But at the moment, people, of course, looking for something maybe a bit extra, and that's what we actually do.
Very good. Yeah. Sorry, what are the social distancing protocols involved at the moment at Hilton properties?
Sorry, I didn't get the question.
What in terms of social distancing? Sorry, my audio's gotten a little funny. What does that look like in the hotels these days, and in the restaurants and in the lobbies and other public areas that are open?
I think, again, of course, social distancing is very important. Everybody is very comfortable in your own space at the moment, right? But it's an evolving process as well over the last couple of weeks. When you spoke to my hotels in China 6 weeks ago, all the restaurants were closed. There was hardly one in the lobby because everybody was very afraid. Nowadays, we have hotels who run very high occupancy. Restaurants have reopened. There's, of course, social measurements and social distancing in place, but every country, even China, every province is different. So we are in constant communication with the local authorities. Here in Singapore is different than Malaysia and Maldives. It's important for us that we actually continue to evolve and really assess the social distancing in all our hotels, week by week, day by day.
Christopher, you're on mute.
Better.
Working now?
Better. Yeah.
Okay, now.
Okay, apologies for that. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes.
all good.
Okay, great. Anyway, I was introducing minor hotels. Thomas, sorry, you're going last, but you have as much time as you want to talk about what's going on with Anantara and Avani. It's worth noting as well that Minor Hotels is deeply invested in Europe as well, since its acquisition of Spain's NH Hotels. So Minor has certainly become a global player and has created a program called Stay with Peace of Mind. The things that caught my attention with the program was, I believe you're working with an outfit called the Siam Ocean Technology to introduce the latest in heating, ventilation, and air conditioning technology. Perhaps we could start talking more about that.
Thank you, Chris. Yeah, certainly. I think a lot has been shared in the last 20 minutes by my industry colleagues. And obviously, we were not able to reinvent the wheel ourselves. But I think it's important that we really make sure we dissect the entire guest journey and sort of make sure we can work and limit on the respective touch points. An element which hasn't really been shared before in detail is obviously also the air quality which we provide to our guests. I think this is something which we have seen in a number of key gateway cities in Asia becoming more important over the last 6 to 8 months, where seasonal pollution, haze, and so forth already had an adverse impact on travel schedule. So we are working with a company called Siam Ocean Technology, which is leading in the field of air purifying and cleaning of airs through very advanced technology system. They have been working with airlines over the last many years, and that technology is now being introduced into the hotel world. We are running tests in 2 properties at the moment to really with a view to make sure we can provide better, cleaner air to our guests during their stay. It's a technology challenge, so we start with rooms. We are trying this in restaurants, we're trying this in public areas, really with a view that we can ramp this up and drive this. I think to add on what some of my colleagues have already shared before, similar to what other brands have been doing, we have partnered up with industry leaders. We're working with WHO, Ecolab, Diversi, and the International SOS from a medical point of view, where similar what has already been shared, we have been changing our cleaning protocol, our hygiene protocol, with a view to be able to provide the best level of security, safety to all our guests. We've also gone through a number of new processes in terms of contactless check-in, in terms of how we can upgrade some of our systems that you can use your phone to access your room door. Do you really have to sign the registration card with a pen in some of the countries? And then where does the pen come from? Where does it go to? So we've invested quite a bit in new UV sterilization technology in F&B, front desk, and also in the room. So when a room cleaning process is completed at Anantara and Avani, we will have UV lamps within the rooms to sterilize the already cleaned area. Depending on the size of the rooms and the strength of the lamp, this will require a different amount of time, which means a cleaning process of a room has substantially increased. Plus, then you have to add the time this will take to complete a sterilization project. What we've also added, and Akor has mentioned that, we have a key responsible person in each of our properties. At Anantara, we call these our guest guardians. At Avani, we call us the Avani Shield, where we really want to make sure that the SOPs which we have implemented and rolled out, which are obviously either complemented, overlaid by whatever the respective government is putting into place from a code point of view, that they are being audited and checked on a daily basis. We have a system that these daily audit reports are being loaded up into our daily management report. So every morning at the ops briefing in the hotel, in addition to who is arriving, the likes and dislikes of a guest, and who is departing, we can check, trace, and record what has been audited yesterday, which department has had a shortfall, where we're falling short of that, where have we done well with this, and where do we need to revise a process. I think that's important and allows us to provide that additional level of assurance to our guests to make sure when they are staying within our properties, we can provide them with that peace of mind and stay with peace of mind. However, I also like to sort of, focus on a bit of positive news. Vietnam has been shared before, is fully operational with the domestic market. Our teams and hotels are doing a tremendous job, responding very, very well to domestic demands. And it's obviously great to see that after a lull, we're coming back and it's doing well. Similar for China, where we are back in operation. Thailand, we have 3 hotels back in operation, 2 more coming online next week. And the Anantara Siam has been the first hotel in Thailand yesterday, which has been certified by the authorities, in this case by the Deputy Prime Minister, having been received the Shah Plug, which is the code for similar to Singapore Clean and so on and so forth. So it's obviously good traction, and we are working closely with the government to make sure we are assisting, driving, complying with whatever they need, so that we can provide safety to all our guests visiting our properties.
Well, that's excellent news. And a quick question. I believe one component of the Avani Shield program is that each guest room will be sealed for 24 hours between guests.
That's correct. Again, I think I can speak for many of my colleagues. We obviously would like to run higher occupancies, but I think this is that additional level of security which we can ensure at reopening of properties to our guests. Similar what Hilton is doing with the Hilton Seal, we are providing this, and we communicate to the guest in this particular case that your room has been cleaned, sanitized, and has been remained vacant for 24 hours, and nobody has entered that room.
Okay, well, that's quite a commitment. Good. So I think that's a lot of information swirling around right now. So I'm going to open the discussion up, and anyone can just come in as they wish. Maybe just raise your hands first if you want to talk. The first question I have for everyone is, I guess, kind of an obvious one. It's we've talked a lot about HEPA filters and disinfectants and all the rest of it. So how do you keep hotels clean without making them sterile?
Can I take that one, Chris?
You absolutely may.
Only because we're a French group, and I think we all know that fragrance is one of the strongest senses in terms of memory and emotion. And I think if you think of perfume, you think of France. I actually personally, I have to say, when I get into my condo lift at the moment, I love the smell of Dettol because it actually sort of reinforces to me that someone's been in there and cleaned it. But I think long term, people don't go to hotels to have it smell like a hospital. They want to have something that's different, that's exciting. And for me, I know when I step into a Sofitel, I smell the Sofitel fragrance, I immediately know where I am. So we're working with some of the leading fragrance houses, perfumeries, to make sure that we can have that cleanliness and sanitation and hygiene, but with that guest experience that's not, nobody wants to go to hospital. So you certainly don't want to be in your hotel. But I think it was mentioned before, while you don't want it to smell like a hospital, I think you do want to see people cleaning. So we will have visibly people around high touch areas, cleaning it at lift areas and whatnot, because that just gives people a little bit of peace of mind. You know, it used to be something that you did in private a little bit more, and we just expected people to trust that we were clean. But now you'll be able to see it, you'll be able to feel it, and hopefully smell it in a different way.
Okay, well, I too love the smell of Dettol in the morning. But I guess what you're saying is that guests will not only be willing to forgive how these protocols impinge upon the traditional guest experience, but actually embrace them, actually derive comfort from them. Does anyone else agree with that?
I think, Chris, it's, you know, I love, of course, that we use the word Dettol because exactly that's why we're actually in a cooperation with the maker of Dettol and Lysol in the US, and bringing that brand into our hotels. I would agree, actually. I would reiterate on my point earlier is the rooms were always clean anyway. The rooms were absolutely clean by our great team members in housekeeping every day for the last 100 years. That's the number one given for a wonderful hotel, regardless of the brand. Now Dettol is giving somehow a piece of your mind and your mind to make sure that that's a brand they know, because they don't know Ecolab, they don't know diversity, you know, they don't know this brand. We know it internally in the hotel world. That's our brands which we all use. But now it's something gives a bit of a comfort. The rooms were not smelling like hospitals in the last 100 years because we used that material anyway. We'll continue to use it. It's maybe a little of a smell of Dettol, and as you know, it was just mentioned by Gaynor. So it's you know, this little smell is actually giving a comfort. But in public spaces, that smell will go a bit away as well. But everybody knows when they see the brands being used by our team members throughout the day. Now that gives a bit of a comfort, and I think that's really important over the next couple of weeks and unfortunately maybe a couple of months. And that's why it becomes actually with Hilton, it becomes a brand standard that this brands will be used in every of our organizations, of our hotels, any brand.
Anyone else?
You know,
and it wasn't really.
Chris, I was just.
Sorry, I didn't focus necessarily on the smell that a hotel may or may not have with all these disinfectants, but just the general ambiance. Now that there's, you know, no touch technologies and social distancing and all those other personal touches that used to be the hallmarks of you know, major hotel brands.
Right.
In the absence of that, what do we do? Yeah, Catherine.
Right. So Chris, I just wanted to really touch on, you know, the Four Seasons app and the chat function, right? So it's something that we feel very strongly about. It's leading in the industry. It is powered by Four Seasons people, property, right? So we have, since we launched it, over 10 million messages that we have encountered and worked with. In terms of responding to these messages, we respond within less than 2 minutes. we average about 600 messages a month, right, in 100 different languages. And so this is how we want to be able to continue to communicate with our customers and our guests. So whether you want something done in your room, anything special, we want to be able to provide that service through a contactless experience. And the Four Seasons app, even before COVID-19, has provided service to our customers. It's not run by chatbots, it's run by Four Seasons people.
Very good, very good. Okay, well, let me move it along and ask, with the current situation for the foreseeable future anyway, what kind of activities, be it wellness or trips outside of the hotel, are being curtailed by the current situation? Or is there no change at all? Thomas, maybe?
Yeah, Chris, if I may, I think you touched on a very important point, wellness and well-being. I think we have already seen in the limited number of hotels which are operational that there has been an increased demand for guests who obviously are much more knowledgeable now about wellness approaches, being it food, being it spa treatments, which can help and boost the immune system. We proactively have actually reformulated our massage oils over the last couple of weeks, which are now focusing, the scent is still the same, so don't worry about that. They don't smell like Dettol, because that's the last thing you would want when you go and have a spa treatment. But we have focused on ingredients which help you in a natural way to boost your immune system. Similar we have done in food and beverage, especially during the temperatures we are experiencing at the moment in Asia, iced teas, cold tea, herbal infusions, and so on and so forth, where many of those have very positive impacts on your immune system and really help you to boost that. So that's something we are actively driving, but we have seen very good response, and the other way around in hotels where we haven't offered it, where we had guests who were inquiring about this and have then implemented that accordingly.
Maybe Chris, if I may say as well, of experience of what guests are actually at the moment looking for. I've spoken to many of our general managers in China recently in the last couple of days, and we know they're a bit ahead of the curve. What we have here in Southeast Asia and Singapore, Indonesia, Thailand, and Malaysia. What we feel over there at the moment is we see a trend of customer trusting again, organization who knows how they prepare their operation. Our food and beverage and many of our hotels in China are actually doing very well. Customers who travel, and even domestically, they would like to go in the restaurant where they know the hygiene is 100% correct. The safety is we're looking after. We know the team members. We know where the ingredients are coming from, and we know the service protocols is really in place. We see the restaurants which are opening are doing really much better because of that. And that's what the customer feedback actually is. Again, back to trusted brands. If you communicate accordingly towards actually every customer we are talking to, it's important. As Catherine said, every customer at Hilton is, if you arrive, you will have a reservation. You get a pre-arrival email. You tell us what you would like to know, and we will tell you in advance. So in case you would like to have a specific service element being delivered to you, we know it in advance, so we can prepare ourselves. So it's really all about back to the communication, and that's what the perception will be anywhere in Asia Pacific. And I believe, and when the US and Europe is getting out of it, it will be the same everywhere. So the perception and the brands who have done a lot in this period of time will be actually much stronger coming out than went in.
Sounds right. Well, let me ask you this, and it's a bit of a crystal ball question, but once the pandemic subsides, how many of these practices that have gone into place are likely to continue? Are they with us, or some will be with us forever, like security checks, or will we just move past it onto something else? Maybe Peter, maybe you could take
Yeah,
that.
I believe that's the same like what we talked prior of the call, that, when we said, so how do you like it to be at home? Look, we are hospitality. We like people. We like people to welcome. We like give service. We provide these things, and certain things stay for good. I think paperless will be a thing which will stay. Social distancing in certain countries is actually something that is already done mandatory. I think in any of the properties in the portfolio, which is in the forum, you set up a restaurant and you have more distance in the restaurant. The restaurants still look amazing. You still don't feel that you created something out of the ordinary ugly, actually. And again, the staff will always provide service. Of course, it's much more distant. I mean, we're going to certain protocols in food and beverage, for example, where you have a hygiene ambassador in the restaurant to make sure that everything is right. And again, this is a rotation because everybody will learn different tasks. I think these things will stay for good. What is very critical, I believe, in the hotels, and I think nobody has touched that, is groups business. Incentives, I'm on calls every week, and hotels will not be recreated now. Nobody has the money to invest in this. It is really to show hygiene is priority and to maintain. And I do believe these things will stay. Certain things like temperature checks, and when you have a vaccine or you actually can regular test people, certain things will go away. And we are going back to a certain normality, I do believe.
Okay. And does this ultimately, and this is an open question for anyone, does this ultimately mean when things come back to the so-called new normal, will there be more staff required at hotels than previously to do all these things?
I think in the moment we have to relocate staff. We have to make sure that certain positions will fall off the cliff, maybe, and certain positions has to be reinforced. Mannings will not be reduced in the moment, depending on business, of course, because you need to have much more presence of staff. But in terms of the cleaning, and as one of the gentlemen said, now we want everybody to see how we clean the lobby and how we shampoo the carpets. Nobody wanted to have this in the past. Now it's the new thing. Again, I do believe this will go away eventually, but I think manning will remain. And
join us in the lobby for the 5 p.m. carpet cleaning.
Exactly.
Right.
Can't wait for that.
That'll be good.
But Chris, I just wanted to add to what he was saying. I think that with this crisis, some politicians said you never let a good crisis go to waste. It's forced us to be more creative, right? And to even heighten what we already are doing. To look at things in a different way, to be much more efficient in the way we operate. An example is, doing more things outdoors, right? One of my colleagues here had mentioned about events that they do outdoors, right? So at the Four Seasons in Hangzhou, there was a meeting, and we set it up outside. So there's so much more that we can do to continue to enhance that guest experience. And we just have to keep ourselves to be better.
I think at the end of the day, I think that's what Peter and now Catherine as well mentioned. Sorry. It's about it's the team members, and that's a service, and that's not only luxury and lifestyle, which I represent, but it's every brand which we have, and any organization. It's a team member who will make a difference. The team members who will actually is still looking after our guests. Now, the difference is how we make sure that our guests will see it. In case there's a mask on, it's difficult that you can actually have a facial expression. But how to define that greeting and how did you find this communication towards the guest? I think that's really important as well. So, in the end of the day, as Peter said, we're in the business of people. And we love people around us and we want more of them. But at the moment, we just have to prepare ourselves how we cater for them in a way that they feel comfortable to actually stay with us and enjoy the experience which we are known for and what we want to deliver even in the future. Are there some short-term standards? Yes, housekeeping is that's number one, and that's, as I said, that's when it becomes a brand standard. However, all the other regulations which are maybe in place at the moment are very, very fluid. Sometimes you write something today and which is already old news tomorrow. So because certain things have changed, in particular by the government organizations. But in the end of the day, we are in hotel business, and that will never ever change. Customer would like to travel.
Yeah.
Customer would like to have an experience.
I think a lot of people are talking about the death of meetings. You know, I don't believe that for a minute. I'm sure that every single one of us has been sitting at home having Zoom calls, like this one, day after day after day. We crave human interaction. We go to hotels to celebrate special moments. You know, I had a birthday coming up very soon and was planning a big celebration at the Sofitel Bali. I can't get there now. It's not going to happen, but I will do that when it returns, and we will return. Definitely travel will rebound. People will still go to hotels to celebrate all these things. We just have to find a new way in the short term to do it. But in the long term, I think hotels are not open for 2 years. They're open for 50, 100 years. So we'll get back to normal. I can't wait. And I will get to my holiday in Bali.
Good luck with that.
Yeah.
Okay, I think now we'll start fielding some questions from the viewers. We have, first up is a question from New of NJ International in Bangkok. How do your hotels handle the luggage, making sure they are safe and clean, but not mixing them up with other luggages upon check-in and check-out? Anyone?
Well, that's not something. Thank you. That's not something really which.
Anyone?
I'll say something. I think it comes back to your point earlier about the airlines as well. So we almost have to create a safety bubble for our guests from the moment they leave their homes to the moment they arrive at the hotel, throughout their stay, and when they go home again. So, just as every other department of the hotel will have extra cleaning protocols, so too will our concierge service and porters. But you make a good point. We have to make sure that, of course, your luggage is going to mix with other luggage on the plane and coming off the conveyor belt. So it's a matter of just taking the time, making sure that our staff are wearing gloves, using disinfectant. Delivering, might take a little longer to deliver your bag to your room, but I'm sure everyone will understand that the reason for that is to protect and safeguard our guests.
Thomas, you had something to
Sorry,
add?
I was talking to myself before. Apologies. We have interesting on the luggage, and we're all road warriors and travel a lot within Asia with carry-ons and hand luggage, and those wheels are being dragged kilometers and kilometers in the airport. We have been doing this for the last couple of years for luggage arrival into our properties, that we clean, disinfect the wheels of these luggages before they're being sent to the room. Now, that's something we didn't really advertise too much because we just felt that's a good little service and an additional touch we provide. Now that's obviously a bigger talking point, and we continue to do that to make sure that your piece of luggage, which has just been dragged through 2 airports in the last 2 days, is safe and clean, and we'll deliver that to your room or suite.
Excellent. Okay. We have another question from Jonathan Lee from the Singapore office of the Korean Tourism Organization. And Jonathan asks, excuse me, other than just accommodation, events is also a large part of tourism, going back to Gaynor's point. I'm interested to know your thoughts on the events industry. How are your properties being prepared in terms of safety measures for events with large groups of people? And when do you see your hotels accepting and safely hosting events again?
I do believe there's a lot of downsizing, and again, properties which have huge meeting space have an advantage, I believe, because they can set up instead of 500 to 200. There will be also virtual presentations. I was on a call last week with New York, the company, and they're discussing this. For example, they're not so much concerned about the normal meetings, but they're more concerned about the gala dinners afterwards, if they're going to be held or if they're only going to be outdoor held. So there is a huge discussion about this, and I think this will take time to figure out. What is great is that we get inquiries in all the properties for groups business for 2021, quarter one, quarter two already. People want to travel, groups or business or companies want to travel, and I think it depends also on the partnership with the companies you're working with, what they expect from you. There's, I think, a lot of customization involved, and the cookie cutter principle will not work for a while.
I would maybe agree, and I would agree and echo actually Gaynor. People would like to travel, and people would like to meet again. So, and because that was the success of many organizations who travel for meetings and events, incentives around the globe for decades, and I think that will come back. Is it maybe coming back immediately? That will not, most probably not. But are we seeing a lot of inquiries, as Peter just mentioned, for 2021 and 2022? Yes, we do. And then there's questions of how we are preparing for it. And that's is now the next step of making sure that we are ensuring our organizers and the companies who are planning to do those events, that we actually be able to host them. I don't foresee actually a real long-term impact in that segment. Short-term, yes, but long-term, this is a segment which was successful working, and after 9/11, nobody thought they would be ever in a plane again, and everybody went back on a plane. So, and there was many points in life where people say we will never get together, and video conferences were the thing 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and people went back to the ballrooms and the meeting space half around the world because that was the success of organizations, and I believe that will come back.
Very good.
Can I add something on this?
Please.
I have asked actually incentive houses. I said, how are you willing to come back to the hotels to show your customers that you want to go and sell the products? And they all said, we want to go. So that's a good indication. I do believe you will make your business again. It's just much more work. It's much more reassurance and gaining the trust.
And if I can add as well, I think the beauty of having large spaces, Catherine mentioned outdoor venues, but when you have big resorts with big ballrooms, you might not fill that ballroom anymore, but it's important to have that space where you can offer people different places to go and have their meeting. They can break up into smaller groups and, have meal times at different times. We're going to return to it. I just can't wait till it happens.
Okay.
Right. And
yes, Catherine.
And I was going to say for meeting planners, as they start to think about rescheduling that meeting or planning for future events, a brand that they can trust is crucial, right? Just based on the reputation, and risk assessment will be a priority in making decisions. And so this is where the brand's reputation and really understanding what is on offer will be critical. Communication and transparency.
If I may add on that, what we have actually seen for leads and inquiries for 2021, especially for, let's call it now, larger groups, where it's almost an opportunity for the hotels as well, whereas the incentive house, the meeting organizer, they are looking for activities which are held within the premises of the hotel, whereas maybe a year ago, it would have been fun to have a tuk-tuk ride for a local breakfast somewhere. Now, as you can imagine, if you're an incentive house and you have to protect 80, 100, 120 participants on 3 different modes of transport within 2 or 3 hours, it comes back to that trust, the trust with the brand. And if you have inspected, vetted, audited a hotel, ballroom, a setup, culinary setup, and you're comfortable with, that ideally then you're using these facilities as much as possible, which will allow in turn for the hotels to be more creative and ideally offer more in terms of possibly new experiences for these meeting participants.
Excellent. Okay. Let me switch things up a bit. Here's a question from, where did it go? And apologies for pronouncing your name wrong if I do, but from Chunks Tibagia in the Philippines asks, and I just lost it, asks, will buffet dining be at all possible in the near future? And if so, what kind of changes should guests expect from the experience? Yes, we all love a hotel buffet. What's happening?
I believe that in the beginning, no, because also occupancy levels, you don't need it, I assume, when you're starting. But then again, it's a learning curve. There's a lot of things which you pick up on the buffet where you don't touch a tongue or something like this. I think the hot buffet items, people will serve you instead of you touching anything. So your food handlers will take care of that. So you will have much more presence of chefs on the buffets when buffets come back. And again, this is something what Niels mentioned in China. China loves their buffets. You have to come with, you have to display it in a different way. You have to maybe stretch it out, and you have to maybe reduce the volume of products, but make it more spacious. And again, creativity, which I think hoteliers are very good, and eventually it's going to come.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if I could say, even before COVID, we had looked from a food waste perspective more than anything else at how we could reinvent the buffet. So at some of our hotels, we'd already introduced like an a la carte buffet. So we're not telling people they can't eat a lot, but we're serving it to them in smaller quantities. And that was all about saving waste. Now, one of the things that worries me about the post-COVID world is we've been so focused on, for example, eliminating plastics out of our hotels. We're going to go back to single-use plastics because people will want things that are, you know, wrapped up and sealed and for their use only. But you can't run hotels in Asia without buffets. It's just how we do it separately. You're going to perhaps have, you know, face guards for people. And instead of people going up and serving themselves, we'll have them being served. But, you know, one of the great experiences of living in Asia is going to a Sunday brunch or a buffet. I don't see the end of them at all.
Yeah, maybe I just add on. I think again, where hotels are ahead of the curve, we have seen the return to buffets. So buffet places have reopened, Korea, China, and other places in Asia Pacific. Yes, there's some protocol in place, and we should absolutely do it, and that's what customers expect. Are we having the big serving dishes, or are we having small dishes which are replenished on a more regular basis? Back to what we call the travel with purpose with Hilton, and sustainability and food waste and all this stuff which comes along with it. And I think that's really important as well. But the Asian culture for decades was about seeing this beautiful buffet. But you know, it's maybe how we get there, that the customers get there in stages to the buffet stations and goes and select things and can be maybe served as well. So certain elements of how we serve it, yes, the buffets will go away. I don't think at all that will happen. And I'm hopeful actually, and seeing the first responses of where we actually have opened it, we are actually seeing it actually returns quickly.
Excellent. Okay.
Right, I agree. It's the same thing at our. I think it's the region, both in Korea, in Seoul, buffets are huge, right? That's very much part of the culture, but adapting it that you have very stringent health and safety measures.
Very good. And we have, well, we're just about out of time, but one last question very quickly. A bunch of different viewers have actually asked regarding staff testing for COVID. Is this a regular thing now, or are employees being tested?
I think
rapid or swap, or what's happening?
I think South Korea did quite well with that. And again, I think every country is specific. What we do as soon as it is available in a country, we will implement it, because it gives you security, and the staff has a security. And again, it's nice to come in and say, hey, yes, I think it's going to be a norm when it's available.
Anyone else?
Yes, to add on to that, same for us. If we are operating in a location in a country where rapid tests are available, absolutely, that we will have our team members to do regular testing, that this is being reported. As I said, at the moment in Asia, in a number of countries, that's not available yet, but we are positive. Maldives, for example, is working on a program like that we can do so that you can confirm that your island you're on is 100% safe and clean and tested.
Yeah, I think testing, we know it everywhere it works, right? In Korea, Peter mentioned, that's what is the success of Korea and many other countries around the world. And as soon as it becomes available, I'm sure it will be an option. And because ultimately we're looking after our guests and team members, both of them. So, and if team members feel good that we look after them, I think it helps as well that team member retention of our organizations will actually be the highest than ever before. So, I think the team members feel good, guests feel good, and I think we're back to where we were last year.
Brilliant.
Right. I think it also starts with re-onboarding, right? As you reopen the hotel, you have to then really talk about, ensuring that the employees for their own personal well-being, take care of their hygiene, right? That if they're even slightly ill, that they don't come to work. It's about reinforcing and heightening the basics, but that all comes with reorientation as you reopen hotels.
Very good. Okay. Well, it looks like our hour has flown by, so I'll thank you all very much again for taking the time out of your busy schedules to be with us today and sharing your insights. And I hope everyone watching this is now more than assured that hotels are doing everything they can to keep their guests and staff safe without impinging upon the guest experience, and that all we need to figure out now is the airline side of things. So with that, again, thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Chris.
Thank you, Chris.
Take care.
Have a good weekend.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.